Everybody, welcome back to Chapter 10. Moving right along here. Today we're going to talk about Section 10-5. And in 10-5, we're going to be solving time problems. I don't mean time as in multiplication, I mean as in telling units of time. As you'll see here, I wrote a list of helpful conversions. Keep in mind, 60 seconds equals 1 minute, 60 minutes are in 1 hour. There are 24 hours in one full day. There are 7 days in 1 week, 52 weeks in a year, and there are 10 years in 1 decade. Keep this chart handy. You're going to find it throughout the chapter, throughout the section of 10-5. Keep it handy. It's good to have this to help you do your work as we go along here. So what I have here are two examples of problems using the same numbers but different operations. In my first example, I'm saying I have 8 hours and 25 minutes, and to that I'm going to add 3 hours and 45 minutes. This is nothing more than a regular addition problem. I'm going to start, just like I do for other operations, all the way to the right. So I'm going to start with my minutes column. 5 plus 5 is 10. Put my 0 down. Carry my 1. 4 plus 2 is 6. Plus 1 is 7. Then I move to my hours column. 8 plus 3 is 11. So I have a final answer of 11 hours and 70 minutes. However, just like we did with improper fractions, we need to convert my minutes because I have more minutes than there are in an hour. So what I'm going to do is use my chart and remember that I have 60 minutes in 1 hour. So I'm going to take away those 60 minutes and I'm going to be left with 10. 0, 7 minus 6 is 1. And I'm going to add the 60 minutes over to here in the form of hours. So when I take away 60 minutes, I'm really taking away 1 hour. I'm going to change that into plus 1 hour on this side for a total of 12 hours and 10 minutes. This section's not overly difficult. The thing that's going to be the most difficult here is remembering what conversions to do. If you use your charts that are in your books and the ones that we made in our notebooks, you should be just fine. So this problem I added. Well, what happens when you subtract? It's very similar to what we do when we subtract a regular problem. 25 minus 45. Well, I can't do that. How can I solve this problem? I can borrow from my hours. I'm going to take 1 hour away. My 8 is going to now become a 7. But I'm not going to stick a 1 here. Remember, when I change my hours to minutes, I'm going to add 60 minutes. This is important to remember. So in reality, I had 25 minutes to start. I added 60 more minutes that I borrowed from here for a grand total of 85 minutes. Now I can do my subtraction. 85 minus 45. 5 minus 5 is 0. 8 minus 4 is 4. So I'm left with 40 minutes. And I do my simple subtraction. 7 hours minus 3 hours gives me a total of 4 hours. The big thing to remember with this is when you borrow from your hours, you need to change it into a whole hour worth of minutes. So that's where I got my 60 from, because 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour. So these are dealing with telling time. What happens if I deal with days of the week, weeks in the year, or years in a decade? Let me show you a quick example of how to do one of each of those types. So let's start here, 5 decades. Years and 3 months. And from that, I'm going to subtract. I'm going to subtract 2 decades, 5 years, and let's say 6 months. This is probably one of the wackiest subtraction problems you've seen written in a long time. It's not difficult though, as long as you use your conversion chart to help you. Let's get started. As I have with all my other problems, I'm going to start on the far right with my months. 3 months minus 6 months. I know I can't do that. So I have to borrow from my years. 4 regroups to a 3, and here's where one of the major conversions comes into play. I'm not putting a 1 here like I would if I were subtracting. I'm adding 1 full year worth of months. How many months are in a year? 12. So, 12 months plus 3 months, I actually have 15 months now. And now I can do my subtraction. 15 minus 6 equals 9. So I know I have, in my answer, 9 months. Now, I have to move to my years. Well, since I borrowed from the 4 and converted it to a 3, I can't do 3 minus 5. So guess what? We need to borrow from the decades. Use your chart to help you. Wow, decades. Okay, let's see. So my 5 is going to become a 4. How many years is in a decade? Well, if I use my chart, I know that there are 10 years in a decade. So I'm going to give this guy 10 more years. For a total, I had 3. I converted my decade into years to get 10 more for a grand total of 13 years. And then I'm going to just do my subtraction. 13 minus 5, 8 years. And finally, 4 decades minus 2 decades, I'm left with 2 decades. A lot of work, a lot of conversions, a lot of referencing your chart that you will have to help you. Don't be afraid to look at the chart. This is going to be one of the most powerful tools you could use to help you with section 10-5. So, what if I took this problem with decades, years, and months, and I added it instead of subtracting it? Let's try it. Same numbers, except we're going to add it now. Again, start on the far right side with your months. 6 months plus 3 months, 9 months. 5 years plus 4 years is 9 years. 5 decades plus 2 decades is 7 decades. I don't need to do any conversions here. The reason I don't is because there are 12 months in a year. In my months column, I have not reached that 12, so I don't have to regroup into the years column. Same idea with the years. There are 10 years in 1 decade, but I only have 9 here. So again, I do not need to regroup. If, for example, this said 15 years, what I would do is take 10 of those 15 and move it as one whole decade over to here. Let me write this for you. 15 years. I would make that into 10 years for a decade and 5 years remaining. I would take my 10 years and move it here for a total of 8 decades and 5 years. I hope this helps you a little bit. I know this is going to be a little challenging just because of all the conversions that you need to do, making sure you have the right amount of hours in a day or weeks in a year or years in a decade and so on and so forth. Please, please, please do not be afraid to reference your chart at any time. Good job today, good work, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.